Usually, when a superpower spends billions on a fortress, they expect it to last longer than a few days of heavy pressure. But Vladimir Putin's southern front just found out that concrete and propaganda don't stop a motivated counteroffensive. In a devastating blow to the Kremlin's grip on the south, Ukrainian forces have just stormed through heavily fortified Russian lines, effectively shattering the primary defense of the Crimean Peninsula. This wasn't a slow crawl. It was a brilliant series of asymmetric strikes that proved the impenetrable Russian shield in Zaporizhzhia was made of paper. The toothless, dragon's teeth, and panic redeployments tell the real story. The strategic shield protecting Putin's most prized possession is rapidly collapsing. Welcome back to Geopolitics Decoded US. I'm Marcus. If you're tired of mainstream headlines and want to join a real-time intelligence briefing, you're in the right place. We don't just report on the war, we decode the moves before they even hit the news cycle. Before we analyze why Crimea is suddenly feeling the heat and how the M-14 corridor is being strangled, take 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button. Join our war room of strategic thinkers and help us keep this analysis independent. Now, let's look at the map. The defense shattered. The crack in the Surovikin mirage. Let's look at the map in the Zaporizhzhia sector. For nearly a year, we were told by every Kremlin-aligned talking head that these fortifications were a modern-day Great Wall. We saw the endless satellite imagery of the dragon's teeth, the deep anti-tank ditches, and the minefields that were supposed to be the graveyard of any Ukrainian advance. Russia invested billions into this static defense, betting their entire southern occupation on a 20th century mindset. But in the 2026 theater of war, static defenses are often just high-priced invitations for innovation. Ukrainian forces didn't just walk into the trap, they dismantled the trap's mechanism from the outside. By executing a brilliant series of asymmetric strikes, combining drone swarms with precision deep fire, they blinded the Russian defenders before the main ground advance even began. When the lines finally broke, it wasn't a slow erosion, it was a storm. We're seeing reports of elite Russian units being forced into panicked redeployments, moving across the front like a desperate shell game that they are destined to lose. This breakthrough has effectively shattered the illusion that Putin's lines were an impenetrable barrier. Ukraine is no longer just probing for weaknesses. They are actively upgrading the speed of this conflict, turning a war of attrition into a masterclass in tactical dismantling. Part 4. The Crimean Threat, from Fortress to Killbox. The strategic fallout of this breakthrough cannot be overstated because it leads to one place, Crimea. To Vladimir Putin, Crimea isn't just a piece of geography. It is the crown jewel of his political legacy and the ultimate symbol of Russian projection in the Black Sea. For years, the Kremlin has treated the peninsula as an unsinkable aircraft carrier, protected by a massive southern shield in Zaporizhzhia. However, with that shield now shattered, Crimea's status has shifted from a fortress to a potential killbox. By breaking the primary defense lines, Ukrainian forces have placed every port, every airbase, and every critical command hub on the peninsula under severe, direct threat. The strategic cushion that once kept Ukrainian firepower at a distance has evaporated. This vulnerability is causing a massive psychological collapse within the Russian command structure. If the Zaporizhzhia sector cannot hold, the physical shield protecting Crimea has essentially been deleted from the equation. We are witnessing the dismantling of the Russian war machine's grip on its most prized possession in real time. This isn't just about losing a few kilometers of trench line. It's about the fact that for the first time since 2014, the land bridge is cracking, and the door to the peninsula is being kicked off its hinges. We are about to move into the most critical part of this briefing, the strangulation of the M-14 logistics corridor. But before we decode how Ukraine is effectively cutting off the oxygen to the Russian army, I want to hear from the war room. Do you think the collapse of the Zaporizhzhia shield is the definitive endgame for the Russian presence in the south? Or does the Kremlin have one more desperate card to play before the land bridge is completely severed? Decode your thoughts in the comments below. I'm personally reading the sharpest tactical takes from our community today. If you value this kind of independent, OSINT-driven analysis over mainstream propaganda, do us a favor. Hit the like button and subscribe to Geopolitics Decoded US. It's the only way to ensure these strategic briefings keep coming. And for those of you on the move, catch our full audio masterclasses on Spotify. Now, let's look at why the M-14 is about to become a graveyard for Russian logistics. Logistics in ruins, strangling the jugular. If the Russian front line is the fist, then the M-14 logistics corridor is the literal jugular. This highway is the vital land bridge that connects mainland Russia to its southern occupation and the Crimean Peninsula. Without it, the entire Russian presence in the south is essentially on a countdown to expiration. Right now, Ukrainian forces have moved within striking distance, placing this critical artery under severe, consistent threat. This isn't just about blowing up a few trucks, it's about fire control. When you can rain precision strikes on every supply convoy that attempts to move, you aren't just fighting an army, you're starving it. Imagine being a Russian commander in the south. Your elite units are screaming for fuel. Your artillery is running low on shells, and your only reliable supply route is now a 160-kilometer-long shooting gallery. It's the ultimate logistical nightmare. Ukraine is systematically dismantling the Russian war machine's grip on the south by making the cost of staying there unsustainable. You can have the most heavily fortified lines in the world, but if your tanks can't move and your soldiers can't eat, those fortifications are just very expensive stationary targets. The strategic shield isn't just cracking, the oxygen is being cut off. Panic in the ranks, the asymmetric reality. What we are witnessing in the Zaporizhzhia sector is more than just a tactical breakthrough. It is a strategic nervous breakdown for the Kremlin. Elite Russian units, originally held in reserve to protect the impenetrable shield, are now being forced into panicked redeployments. They are being shifted across the front in a desperate attempt to plug holes that are opening faster than they can react. This is the hallmark of asymmetric warfare. Ukraine isn't trying to outmuscle the Russian army in a 1940s-style brawl. They are using a digital hive mind of AI-driven drones and precision strikes to outthink them. The illusion of the invincible Russian defense has been shattered. When your primary defensive shield collapses, the psychological impact is often more devastating than the physical one. We see a Russian command structure that is reactive, not proactive, fighting yesterday's fires while the house is still burning. By storming through these heavily fortified lines, Ukraine has proven that no amount of concrete can protect a war machine that has lost its initiative. The dragon's teeth were supposed to be a symbol of Russian strength. Instead, they've become a monument to a defensive doctrine that is officially obsolete. The chessboard has been overturned, and right now, the Russian generals are the ones struggling to remember where the pieces used to be. The asymmetric endgame. The paper shield versus the digital hammer. Let's be brutally honest. Vladimir Putin didn't just lose a few trenches in the Zaporizhzhia sector. He lost the argument for 20th century warfare. For years, the Kremlin marketed its impenetrable defensive lines as the ultimate deterrent. A paper shield, meant to soak up any offensive through sheer mass and concrete. But as we've decoded tonight, mass is irrelevant when your opponent is using a digital hammer. Ukrainian forces have proven that highly coordinated, asymmetric strikes can dismantle a heavily fortified line in days, not months. By bypassing the primary defense of the Crimean Peninsula, they didn't just break the line, they broke the Russian military's sense of security. The dragon's teeth that were supposed to be the graveyard of Ukrainian armor are now just road markers for a rapid ground advance. This is the reality of the 2026 battlefield. If you can't protect your electronic footprint and your logistics hubs, all the concrete in the world is just a high-priced coffin.
Shattered.
Ukraine is effectively upgrading the very definition of a breakthrough, using AI-driven precision to ensure that when a line cracks, it doesn't just bend, it shatters. The Russian war machine is no longer fighting a war of attrition. It is fighting a war against a software update it never saw coming. The Crimean countdown. No more safe zones. This brings us to the ultimate strategic reality. The Crimean Peninsula is no longer a sanctuary. For over a decade, Putin has treated Crimea as an untouchable fortress, the crown jewel of his geopolitical legacy. But with the strategic shield in Zaporizhzhia collapsing, that illusion has been deleted. Every airbase, every supply depot, and every command center in Crimea is now within the reach of Ukrainian Hwaluk firepower. This isn't just about a tactical shift, it's about a total strategic exposure. The physical and strategic protection that once made Crimea feel safe has evaporated under the pressure of rapid ground advances and relentless asymmetric strikes. We are witnessing the dismantling of the Russian grip on its most prized possession. As elite units are forced into panicked redeployments, the message from the Ukrainian command is clear. There are no more safe zones. If the M-14 corridor, the literal land bridge, is severed, Crimea becomes an island in more ways than one. It becomes a strategic kill box where the Russian military will have to choose between a humiliating withdrawal or a total collapse. The chessboard has been overturned, and as the clock ticks down on the southern front, the Kremlin is running out of pieces to move. The fortress is now a liability, and the shield is in ruins. We have just decoded the collapse of the southern shield and the direct threat to the Crimean heartland. But the question that remains is the most dangerous one of all. What happens when a nuclear superpower is backed into a corner with its crown jewel on the line?
Is active.
Before we move into our final part, where we decode the potential endgame scenarios and the global response to the Crimean vulnerability, I want to see your tactical foresight. Is the collapse of the M-14 the definitive end of the Russian occupation? Or is Putin preparing a scorched earth response we haven't seen yet? Drop your analysis in the comments. The sharpest perspectives will be highlighted in our next briefing. If you value this level of strategic clarity and independent OSINT analysis, hit the like button and subscribe to Geopolitics Decoded US. And for the deep divers, join us on Spotify for the full-length tactical masterclasses. Now, let's look at the end game. The global fallout. Precedent over propaganda. The collapse of the Zaporizhzhia shield isn't just a disaster for the Kremlin, it is a seismic shift for the global order. For over a decade, the invincibility of Russian defensive lines was a core tenet of international security discussions. But as Ukrainian forces storm through these heavily fortified positions, they are proving that the 20th century concept of a fortress Europe is dead. This is no longer just a slow war of attrition. It is a demonstration that asymmetric brilliance and rapid ground advances can dismantle a nuclear superpower's primary defense in a matter of days. The world is watching the M-14 corridor. If this vital logistics jugular is severed, the strategic shield protecting Crimea evaporates, leaving Putin with zero good options. Every ally and adversary on the global chessboard is taking notes. They see a Russian war machine that is reactive and panicked, its elite units forced into chaotic redeployments, while its most prized possession, Crimea, becomes completely vulnerable. This isn't just about Ukraine reclaiming its land. It is about the total dismantling of the myth that brute force and concrete can still dictate the rules of the 21st century. The final verdict: chess, not checkers. So here is the final debrief. Vladimir Putin spent years building a shield that he thought was impenetrable. He gambled his entire southern front on the idea that the Zaporizhzhia sector was an immovable object. But he forgot that Ukraine has become an irresistible force. By shattering the primary defense lines and threatening the M-14 land bridge, Ukraine has effectively unplugged the Russian war machine's life support in the south. Crimea is no longer a safe haven, it is a countdown. The M-14 is no longer a highway, it's a graveyard for Russian logistics. And the dragon's teeth? They're just speed bumps on the road to a strategic reality the Kremlin isn't prepared for. Putin thought he was playing a game of attrition where he could outlast the clock. Instead, he's found himself in a game of high-speed tactical chess, and he just lost his queen. The southern shield has fallen, the land bridge is cracking, and the Kremlin's elite units are currently looking for a way out that doesn't involve a one-way trip through a HIMARS strike. But I want to know your endgame. Is the liberation of Crimea inevitable, or are we looking at a stalemate at the gates of the peninsula? Decode your thoughts in the comments below. We're looking for the sharpest strategic minds to highlight in our next session. If you found this briefing more useful than a standard news cycle, do us a favor. Hit the like button and subscribe to Geopolitics Decoded US. It's how we keep the signal loud and the propaganda quiet. And don't forget, you can catch the full-length tactical masterclasses on Spotify for when you're on the move. I'm Marcus. Thanks for standing watch. Stay safe and stay sharp.